In a decisive meeting with foreign investors, a businessman sees his future threatened by a devastating, unforeseen event. The janitor's daughter, only 7 years old, was fluent in French taught by her late mother. Without hesitation, she took on a crucial role no one expected to entrust to a child. The San Francisco skyline gleamed with golden hour sunlight as Jack Reynolds stared out from the 37th floor of the Horizon Tower. His reflection in the glass told the story of a man on the edge, disheveled dark hair, tired blue eyes, and a 5 o'clock shadow that had been growing since yesterday. At 42, Jack had staked everything on this day. 15 years of research, his family's financial security, and the jobs of over 200 employees at Vitalis Innovations. Jack, the French investors just confirmed their landing at 2. Amy Chen, his executive assistant, stood in the doorway, her typically composed demeanor showing cracks of concern. They'll be here by 4. There's something else. Jack turned, recognizing the hesitation in her voice. What now? Pierre, our translator, has severe food poisoning. He's in the ER. Amy's voice dropped to a whisper. He can't make it. The words hit Jack like a physical blow. His hands began to tremble slightly as he walked back to his desk covered with presentation materials prepared over the past year. The HealthScan AI software, capable of diagnosing diseases in seconds using advanced imaging technology, wasn't just another product. It represented a healthcare revolution that could save countless lives, especially in underserved communities. These investors only speak French? Jack asked, desperately hoping for a different answer than the one he already knew. Monsieur Beaumont refuses to conduct business in anything but French. It's a point of cultural pride for him, Amy confirmed, and the other 3 members of his delegation follow his lead. Jack rubbed his temples. And they're flying out tonight? Back to Paris? Private jet scheduled for departure at 9. This is our only window. Amy's fingers flew across her tablet. I've already called every translation agency in the Bay Area. On such short notice, everyone's booked. The French consulate can't help either. I even tried Stanford's French department. Jeanette, the company's CFO, entered the office, her normally stoic face betraying panic. Tell me we have a solution for the translator situation. Jack stared at the financial projections on his desk. Without the $1.5 billion investment from Beaumont Global Health, Vitalis would run out of operating capital in 6 weeks. The layoffs would begin next week. The revolutionary technology would die in prototype form. Years of sacrifice, missing his daughter's soccer games, working through anniversaries, the strain that eventually broke his marriage, all for nothing. We need to reschedule, Jeanette suggested, though her tone indicated she already knew it was impossible. Beaumont's schedule is booked solid for the next 3 months, Amy responded. By then we'll be bankrupt, Jack finished. The knot in his stomach tightened. What about AI translation software? Monsieur Beaumont specifically mentioned in our pre-meeting correspondence that he considers AI translation soulless and inadequate for matters of such importance. Amy read from her notes. The room fell silent. Jack walked back to the window, watching the ferry boats crossing the bay. He had started Vitalis in a garage in Palo Alto after watching his father succumb to a rare disease that could have been caught earlier with better diagnostic tools. Now, after building it into a respected medical technology company, everything hung by a thread. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Reynolds, building maintenance is here about the leak in the conference room ceiling. Not now, Jack started to say, but Amy interrupted. Actually, that needs immediate attention before the meeting. Send them up. Minutes later, a man in navy blue coveralls entered with a toolbox and a young girl trailing behind him. The man, whose name badge read Thomas Wilson, nodded respectfully. Sorry to disturb you, Mr. Reynolds. The ceiling issue shouldn't take long. This is my daughter, Lily. School's out for teacher training day, and the babysitter cancelled last minute. Hope it's okay she's with me. Jack barely registered their presence, still focused on his imploding business prospects. He nodded absently as Thomas and his daughter headed toward the conference room down the hall. Amy followed them to show where the leak was located. Jack could hear Thomas explaining something about the building's ancient pipes to his daughter in the hallway. Oui, c'est comme la maison de grand-mère à Montréal, the child's voice floated back. Les vieux bâtiments ont toujours des problèmes de plomberie. Jack's head snapped up. He glanced at Jeanette, who had also frozen in place. Did she just... Jeanette began. Speak perfect French, Jack finished, rising from his chair so quickly it rolled back and hit the wall. He hurried to the conference room where Thomas was examining the ceiling, while Lily, a small girl with auburn hair tied in two neat braids, was humming a melody, swinging her legs as she sat on one of the executive chairs. "Excusez-moi," Jack said, using one of the few French phrases he knew. "Parlez-vous français?" The girl looked up, her freckled face breaking into a bright smile. "Oui, monsieur. Je parle français couramment. Ma mère était canadienne, de Québec. Elle m'a appris quand j'étais toute petite." Jack turned to Amy, his eyes wide. "What did she say?" "She says she speaks French fluently. Her mother was Canadian from Quebec and taught her when she was very little," Amy translated. Her own French rusty but functional. Thomas looked up from his work, pride evident in his expression. "Lily's got her mother's gift for languages. Sarah was from Montreal, French-Canadian family going back generations. She passed 5 years ago, but Lily keeps up with her French. Our neighbor, Mrs. LeBlanc, helps her practice." The girl nodded enthusiastically. "I watch French cartoons every day and read French books. Mrs. LeBlanc says my accent is très magnifique." She pronounced the French words with perfect inflection. Jack exchanged a meaningful look with Jeanette and Amy. The desperate idea forming in his mind must have been transparent, because Thomas straightened up, looking concerned. "What's going on?" he asked. Jack took a deep breath. "Mr. Wilson, how would you feel about your daughter helping us with something extremely important this afternoon?" "Helping how?" "Our French translator has fallen ill, and we have French investors arriving for a critical meeting in just a few hours. Without a translator, we can't proceed, and without this meeting—" Jack's voice trailed off. "You need Lily to translate?" Thomas looked incredulous. "She's 7 years old." "I know how it sounds," Jack admitted, "but we've exhausted every professional option in the city. This investment is the difference between our company surviving or 200 people losing their jobs. The technology we're developing could save thousands of lives." Thomas looked skeptical. "I don't know." "This sounds like business way over her head." "What kind of technology?" Lily asked suddenly, her brown eyes serious and interested. Jack knelt to her level. "It's a special computer program that can look at medical pictures and find diseases very quickly, much faster than doctors sometimes can. It could help a lot of sick people, especially children in places without many doctors." Lily's eyes widened. "Like how Mommy was sick." Thomas placed a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Sarah had a rare condition that wasn't diagnosed until it was too late," he explained quietly to Jack. "If the doctors had caught it sooner—" The words hung in the air, an echo of Jack's own motivation for founding Vitalis. "I want to help," Lily said firmly, looking up at her father. "Please, Daddy, I can do it." "Sweetie, these are complicated business things," Thomas began. "We can brief her on the terminology," Amy suggested. "We have all the presentation materials. If she understands the concepts, and I can simplify my technical explanations," Jack added. "The core concepts aren't that complex." Thomas looked torn, studying his daughter's determined face. "This is crazy," he muttered, but there was a softening in his expression. Lily tugged at her father's sleeve. "Mommy always said my French was a special gift I should use to help people. This is important, right?" Jack nodded solemnly. "More important than anything we've ever done." Thomas sighed deeply. "If, and it's a big if, I agree to this, I'd need to stay with her the entire time." "Absolutely," Jack agreed instantly, "and it can't interfere with her schoolwork or well-being." "The meeting should last 2 hours at most," Amy assured him. "We'll make sure she's comfortable and not overwhelmed." Thomas looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then back at Jack's desperate one. The decision hanging in the balance wasn't just about a business meeting. It was about lives that could be saved, including children like his daughter. "Okay," he said finally. "We'll help you." Jack felt the first glimmer of hope he'd experienced all day. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you both." As Thomas returned to fixing the ceiling leak, Jack, Amy, and Jeanette exchanged nervous glances. They had 4 hours to prepare a 7-year-old girl to help save a billion-dollar deal that could change the future of medicine forever. What none of them realized was that Lily Wilson would end up changing far more than just the outcome of one business meeting. The next 3 hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. The conference room transformed into an impromptu training center for their 7-year-old savior. Amy had procured a child-sized blazer from a department store across the street, while the company's marketing team created simplified flashcards with key French medical and technical terms. Lily sat attentively at the head of the conference table, her small legs dangling well above the floor, as Jack explained the basics of the HealthScan AI technology using colorful diagrams. "So the computer learns by looking at thousands of pictures of sick people and healthy people?" Lily asked, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Exactly," Jack nodded, impressed by her quick understanding. "And then it can spot problems in new pictures faster than doctors sometimes can. Like hide and seek, but for sickness," Lily concluded with a satisfied nod. Jack smiled. "That's actually a perfect way to explain it." From the corner, Thomas watched with a mixture of pride and concern. He had called Lily's school to explain her absence and was now monitoring to ensure she wasn't being overwhelmed. Surprisingly, his daughter seemed to be thriving under the pressure, absorbing information with remarkable ease. "She's always been like this," Thomas explained quietly to Amy, as they observed Lily reviewing French business terms with Jeanette. "Sarah, my late wife, used to say Lily had an old soul. She understands things most kids her age wouldn't even notice." Amy nodded, watching as Lily correctly pronounced intelligence artificielle diagnostique without hesitation. "She's extraordinary. But are you sure this isn't too much for her?" Thomas's expression softened as he watched his daughter. After Sarah's departure, Lily became very interested in medicine and how doctors find illnesses. "I think this actually means something to her. It's not just about helping your company." Across the room, Jeanette was reviewing the financial terminology with Lily. "So when they say retour sur investissement, that means how much money they'll make back if they give you money now?" Lily asked. "That's right," Jeanette confirmed. "And if they ask about flux de trésorerie, cash flow," Lily responded triumphantly, "which means how money moves in and out of the business." Jeanette couldn't help but laugh. "I have MBA students who don't grasp these concepts so quickly." Jack's phone buzzed with a message from building security. "They're here," he announced, his voice tense. "The Beaumont delegation is in the lobby." The atmosphere in the room immediately shifted. Thomas straightened Lily's little blazer and adjusted her braids. "Remember, sweetheart, if it gets too difficult or you don't understand something, just look at me and we'll take a break." Lily nodded solemnly. "I won't let you down, Daddy. Or you, Mr. Reynolds," she added, looking at Jack. Jack knelt down to her level. "Lily, you've already done more than we could have hoped for just by being here. Whatever happens next, you've been incredibly brave." The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Reynolds, the Beaumont delegation is on their way up." Everyone took their positions. Jack at the head of the table with presentation materials ready, Jeanette with the financial projections, Amy prepared to coordinate the technology demonstration, and Lily positioned by the door to greet the visitors. Thomas stood discreetly in the corner, ready to intervene if needed. The elevator chime announced the visitors' arrival. Amy squeezed Jack's shoulder in silent support as the conference room door opened. Monsieur Claude Beaumont entered first, a distinguished man in his 60s with silver hair and an imposing presence, followed by three equally serious-looking executives. Their expressions registered immediate surprise at the sight of Lily. Before anyone could speak, Lily stepped forward with perfect poise and extended her hand. "Bonjour, Monsieur Beaumont. Je m'appelle Lily Wilson et je serai votre interprète aujourd'hui. Bienvenue à Vitalis Innovation. Nous sommes honorés de votre présence." The perfect French greeting, delivered with flawless pronunciation and the innocent confidence only a child could muster, momentarily stunned the visitors. Beaumont's eyebrows shot up, but to everyone's relief, his stern expression softened slightly as he bent down to shake Lily's hand. "Enchanté, Mademoiselle Wilson," he replied, his tone curious rather than dismissive. "Vous êtes une très jeune interprète, n'est-ce pas?" Lily nodded. "Oui, monsieur. J'ai 7 ans, mais je parle français depuis que je suis bébé. Ma mère était québécoise." As Lily continued the exchange, explaining in French about their regular translator's sudden illness, Jack watched Beaumont's face carefully. The initial shock was giving way to something else, perhaps amusement, or even respect for the unusual solution to their problem. Amy leaned close to Jack. She told him she's 7 but has spoken French since she was a baby because her mother was from Quebec, she whispered. "He seems intrigued rather than offended." Jack nodded, barely breathing, as Lily led the delegation to their seats, chatting comfortably in French about San Francisco's weather compared to Paris. She was handling the situation with a natural charm that no adult could have manufactured. Once everyone was seated, Jack cleared his throat. "Lily, please tell our guests that we appreciate their understanding of our unusual circumstances and that we're excited to present our health scan AI technology. Lily translated smoothly, adding a warm smile that seemed to further relax the atmosphere. Beaumont responded, and Lily turned to Jack. Monsieur Beaumont says that unexpected solutions sometimes yield the most interesting results, and he's curious to see your presentation. Jack launched into his carefully prepared introduction, with Lily translating each segment with remarkable accuracy. When technical terms arose, she referred discreetly to her flashcards, but maintained the flow of communication without missing a beat. During the technical demonstration of the AI's diagnostic capabilities, Jack noticed something extraordinary happening. Rather than creating distance, Lily's presence was humanizing the entire presentation. When she translated Jack's explanation of how the technology could help children in remote areas receive quick diagnoses, her own emotion was evident in her voice. "My mummy got sick," she added after translating one section, going off script but speaking from the heart. "The doctors found out too late, but your special computer could help other mummies and daddies get better, right?" Thomas tensed in the corner, but Jack nodded. "Yes, Lily, that's exactly why we built it." When Lily translated this exchange, the mood in the room transformed. Beaumont and his team leaned forward, their focus sharpening. The youngest member of their delegation, a woman named Sophie, wiped away a tear. Beaumont spoke at length, looking directly at Lily. "He says," Lily translated, "that technology without heart is just machines, but technology with purpose is medicine. He wants to know why you made this, Mr. Reynolds." Jack hadn't planned to share his personal story, but something about Lily's presence made the moment right. "Tell him I lost my father to a disease that could have been detected earlier with better tools. Tell him I started Vitalis because I believe no one should lose family members to conditions we have the technology to diagnose." As Lily translated, her voice carried the emotion of Jack's words perfectly. Beaumont nodded slowly, then spoke again. "He says his grandson was diagnosed with a rare condition last year," Lily relayed. "The doctors caught it early, but only because they're in Paris with good hospitals. He thinks about children who don't have those hospitals nearby." The conversation continued, but something fundamental had changed. What had begun as a clinical business presentation had become a human exchange about saving lives. Lily wasn't just translating words, she was connecting hearts across languages. When they reached the financial section, Jeanette took over, explaining their projections and funding requirements. Here, Lily's preparation proved invaluable as she navigated complex financial terminology without hesitation. Beaumont's team asked pointed questions about regulatory approvals, market penetration strategies, and competitive positioning. Each time, Lily translated accurately, sometimes pausing to make sure she understood before conveying the message. During a particularly technical exchange about FDA approval pathways, Thomas watched his daughter with amazement. The little girl, who still needed help tying her shoes, was facilitating a billion-dollar business negotiation without missing a beat. As the presentation concluded, Jack felt cautiously optimistic. The engagement level from Beaumont and his team suggested genuine interest rather than merely polite attention. However, the most challenging part was yet to come: the actual investment negotiation. "Please tell our guests we'll take a short break before discussing the investment structure," Jack instructed Lily. "Ask if they need anything during the break." After Lily translated and the Beaumont team stepped out to make some calls, Jack pulled his team aside. "How are we doing?" he asked anxiously. "Better than I expected," Jeanette admitted. "They're engaged, but the real test comes next when we talk numbers." Amy nodded in agreement. "Beaumont is known for driving hard bargains. He might try to lowball us or demand a controlling stake." Jack turned to Lily, who was sipping apple juice through a straw. "How are you holding up, Lily? You're doing an amazing job." "It's fun," she replied with a shrug. "They talk funny sometimes, but I understand them. Monsieur Beaumont reminds me of my grandfather." Thomas placed a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Should we continue? She's been at this for hours now." Lily looked up at her father. "I want to finish, Daddy. This is important. It's like a mission." Before Thomas could respond, the door opened and the Beaumont delegation returned. Monsieur Beaumont approached Lily directly and spoke to her in French. "He wants to know if I'm tired," Lily translated for the others. "I told him I'm not tired at all because this is too exciting." Beaumont smiled, his first genuine smile of the meeting, and said something else that made Lily laugh. "What did he say?" Jack asked. He said when he was my age, he would have fallen asleep during all this business talk, Lily explained. But he thinks I'm formidable. That means awesome. As everyone retook their seats for the crucial investment discussion, Jack couldn't help but feel that something remarkable was happening. Through the unlikely presence of a 7-year-old interpreter, they had somehow broken through the formal business facade to connect on a human level. Now they just had to secure the investment that would save the company and bring their life-saving technology to the world. And somehow, Jack suspected that Lily Wilson would prove just as crucial to that outcome as she had been to the presentation itself. The atmosphere in the conference room shifted palpably as Jeanette opened the financial discussion. The friendly rapport established during the presentation gave way to the steely-eyed focus of experienced investors preparing to negotiate. Jack noticed how Monsieur Beaumont's posture changed, leaning forward slightly, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Please inform our guests that we are seeking a $1.5 billion investment for a 20% equity stake in Vitalis, Jeanette began, her voice steady despite the stakes. Lily translated carefully, consulting her note card for the financial terms. When she finished, the French delegation exchanged glances, and Beaumont's chief financial officer, Marcel Dupont, responded with a lengthy statement. Lily listened intently, her small brow furrowing in concentration. He says that based on their valuation models, they believe Vitalis is worth much less than what you're suggesting. They're thinking more like, She paused, working through the numbers. 800 million for 30%. Jack felt his stomach drop. The offer was dramatically below what they needed and would give Beaumont's company significant control. He glanced at Jeanette, whose tight-lipped expression confirmed his assessment. That's significantly below market value for a company with our proprietary technology and patent portfolio, Jeanette replied coolly. Our algorithm has demonstrated 97% accuracy in clinical trials, far exceeding any competitor. As Lily translated, Jack observed how Beaumont watched her rather than Jeanette. There was something in the investor's expression, not condescension, but a curious assessment, as though the child herself were part of his evaluation of Vitalis. The back and forth continued, with offers and counter-offers flowing through Lily's clear translations. The gap narrowed somewhat, but Beaumont remained firm on the equity percentage, insisting on no less than 28% ownership. The French team was professional, but unrelenting, using classic negotiation tactics that even Lily's innocent presence couldn't completely disarm. After 40 minutes, they had reached an impasse. Beaumont's final offer stood at $1.1 billion for 28% equity, still short of the capital Vitalis needed and with more control than Jack was willing to surrender. During a brief pause while Beaumont consulted with his team, Thomas approached Jack. "She's getting tired," he whispered, nodding toward Lily, who was rubbing her eyes. "Maybe we should take a proper break." Jack nodded, recognizing the fatigue in the child's posture. "Lily, could you ask them if we might take a 15-minute break?" Before Lily could translate, Beaumont looked at his watch and spoke directly to Jack in heavily accented English, the first time he had done so. "Perhaps we conclude today. Our position is firm. You consider overnight, yes? We delay departure until morning." The unexpected concession, both speaking English and delaying departure, surprised Jack. "That would be very helpful, thank you." Beaumont nodded, then returned to French, addressing Lily directly. She listened, then translated for everyone. "He says that I've done an excellent job and that I should be proud. He wants to know if I have any questions for him before they leave." Jack was about to politely conclude the meeting when Lily spoke up. "Can I ask him something, Mr. Reynolds?" Jack hesitated, then nodded. At this point, they had little to lose. Lily turned to Beaumont and spoke in French. The conversation continued for several minutes, with Lily doing most of the talking while Beaumont and his team listened with increasing interest. Jack couldn't understand the exchange, but he could see the expressions changing on the French executives' faces, from surprise to thoughtfulness to what appeared to be genuine emotion. Finally, Beaumont responded at length, his tone warm and reflective. When the exchange concluded, Beaumont stood and shook Lily's hand formally, then turned to Jack. "We meet again tomorrow, 9 a.m. Perhaps new perspectives," he said in his limited English, before departing with his team. As soon as the door closed behind them, Jack turned to Lily. "What did you say to him?" Lily took a sip of water before answering. "I asked him what he wanted to be when he was my age." The simplicity of the question stunned the room into silence. "And what did he say?" Amy finally asked. "He said he wanted to be a doctor, like his father, but his father lost their family business. So Monsieur Beaumont had to become a businessman instead to support everyone." Lily's voice was matter-of-fact, but her eyes showed understanding beyond her years. "He never got to be a doctor, but he said he still tries to help people by investing in medicine." Jack exchanged glances with Jeanette and Amy, the implications dawning on them all. "I told him that my mommy always said money is just a tool to make dreams come true," Lily continued. "And I asked him if his dream was still to help sick people like doctors do." Thomas placed a gentle hand on his daughter's shoulder. "What did he say to that, sweetheart?" "He got very quiet, and then he said sometimes grown-ups forget their first dreams because they're so busy with grown-up problems." Lily shrugged. "I told him I thought his first dream was more important than the grown-up problems." Jack sat down heavily in the nearest chair, processing what had just happened. This child had somehow cut through layers of corporate negotiation to touch on something fundamental: Beaumont's original purpose. "Do you think it made a difference?" Jack asked no one in particular. Jeanette checked her phone. "His assistant just emailed. They've moved tomorrow's meeting from 9 a.m. to 8 a.m. and requested that Lily be present again." "That's a good sign, right?" Thomas asked. "It could be," Amy responded cautiously. "But we still need to prepare for all scenarios. They might come back with the same offer." Jack nodded, though something told him things had shifted. He turned to Thomas. "Would it be possible for Lily to join us again tomorrow? I understand if it's too much to ask." Thomas looked at his daughter, who was now showing signs of fatigue after the intense day. "That depends on Lily. How do you feel about it, sweetheart?" "I want to come back," she said firmly. "I think Monsieur Beaumont just needs to remember why helping people is more important than just business stuff." Jack couldn't help but smile at her simple wisdom. "I think you might be right, Lily." As Thomas prepared to take Lily home for much-needed rest, Jack's phone rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number with a Canadian area code. Thinking it might be related to their regulatory applications in Canada, he answered, "Mr. Reynolds, this is Robert Sinclair, an attorney from Montreal. I apologize for calling unexpectedly, but I've been trying to locate Thomas Wilson and his daughter Lily for some time. I understand they may be connected to your company." Jack glanced at Thomas and Lily, who were gathering their things. "May I ask what this is regarding?" "It's a private matter concerning the estate of Claire Devereux. It's quite urgent that I speak with them." Jack's curiosity was piqued. "They're actually just leaving, one moment." He covered the phone and addressed Thomas. "There's an attorney from Montreal on the line looking for you and Lily. Something about an estate. Claire Devereux." Thomas's face paled. Claire Devereux was Sarah's grandmother, Lily's great-grandmother. "We heard she passed away a few years ago, but we never had any contact." Jack handed him the phone. As Thomas spoke with the attorney, his expression changed from confusion to disbelief. The conversation lasted several minutes, with Thomas asking numerous questions and occasionally glancing at Lily with an unreadable expression. When he finally ended the call, he looked stunned. "Everything okay?" Jack asked. I'm not sure," Thomas said slowly. "Apparently Sarah's grandmother was wealthy, very wealthy. The Devereux family owns one of the largest private hospital networks in Quebec. When Claire passed away, she left everything to her only surviving descendant." "Lily?" Amy asked. Thomas nodded. "They've been searching for us for 3 years. Sarah had disconnected from her family long before we met, and they didn't know about Lily until recently. The attorney wants us to fly to Montreal next week to discuss the inheritance." Lily, who had been listening quietly, tugged at her father's sleeve. "Does this mean we're rich now, Daddy?" Thomas kneeled to her level. "I don't know exactly what it means yet, sweetheart, but it sounds like your great-grandmother left you something important." "Like a hospital?" Lily asked innocently. "Maybe something like that," Thomas replied, still processing the revelation. Jack watched the scene unfold, feeling as though he was witnessing something momentous, a convergence of unlikely events that seemed almost orchestrated by fate. First, Lily's timely appearance to save their crucial meeting, her extraordinary impact on Beaumont, and now this revelation about her heritage. "Let's focus on tomorrow's meeting first," Jack suggested gently. "The inheritance matters can wait a few days." Thomas nodded, clearly overwhelmed. "Right. One life-changing event at a time." As they prepared to leave, Lily approached Jack with the earnest expression that had become familiar throughout the day. "Mr. Reynolds, I think everything's going to be okay tomorrow." Monsieur Beaumont has a good heart. I could tell. Jack smiled at her confidence. I hope you're right, Lily. My mommy used to say that grown-ups make things too complicated. Sometimes the answer is simple. With that pearl of wisdom, she took her father's hand and left. After they departed, Jack, Jeanette, and Amy remained in the conference room, revising their strategy for the morning meeting. We should prepare for any scenario, Jeanette advised, but I have to admit there was something about how Beaumont responded to Lily that gives me hope. Amy nodded in agreement. Did you notice how he looked at her when she asked about his childhood dream, like he was seeing something he'd forgotten? Jack stared at the presentation materials spread across the table. We've been approaching this all wrong. We've been selling Beaumont on numbers and market potential when we should have been reminding him why healthcare innovation matters in the first place. And somehow a 7-year-old girl figured that out before any of us, Jeanette remarked with a rueful smile. As they continued planning, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the cusp of something transformative, not just for Vitalis, but perhaps for healthcare itself. And it had taken the innocent wisdom of a child to set these wheels in motion. What none of them could have predicted was how the following day's meeting would not only reshape the future of Vitalis, but would set in motion a chain of events that would transform pediatric medicine across North America. At the center of it all would be Lily Wilson, the unlikely translator who was about to become so much more. The following morning arrived with a sense of possibility hanging in the air. Jack had barely slept, reviewing figures and rehearsing scenarios until the early hours. He arrived at the office at 6, surprised to find Jeanette and Amy already there, making final preparations for what could be the most important meeting in Vitalis's history. Coffee, Amy offered, handing him a steaming cup. You look like you need it, Jack accepted gratefully. Any word from Thomas and Lily? They're on their way, Amy confirmed. Thomas texted that Lily insisted on picking up croissants for the French delegation. Said it would be a nice gesture. Jack smiled despite his nerves. She thinks of everything, doesn't she? At precisely 7:30, Thomas and Lily arrived. Lily was dressed in a new blue dress with a matching headband, looking professional yet appropriately childlike. She carried a bakery box carefully in both hands. Good morning, Mr. Reynolds, she greeted cheerfully. I brought real French croissants from La Boulangerie on Market Street. Mrs. Leblanc says they're the most authentic in San Francisco. That's very thoughtful, Lily, Jack replied, touched by her consideration. Thomas looked more rested than the previous day, though a certain tension remained in his shoulders. We had a longer conversation with that attorney last night, he told Jack quietly, while Lily arranged croissants on a plate with Amy's help. The situation is significant, but we're focusing on today first. Jack nodded in understanding. One life-changing event at a time, right? At 7:55, the receptionist called to announce the Beaumont delegation's arrival. Everyone took their positions, the atmosphere charged with nervous energy. When the conference room door opened, Jack immediately sensed a difference in Beaumont's demeanor. The French businessman entered with a more relaxed posture, and remarkably he was alone, his team nowhere to be seen. Bonjour, Mademoiselle Lily, Beaumont greeted, his focus immediately on the child. Bonjour, Monsieur Beaumont, Lily responded with a bright smile. J'ai apporté des croissants pour vous ce matin. Beaumont looked genuinely touched by the gesture, responding in French while accepting a croissant from the plate Lily offered. He says it reminds him of breakfasts with his grandfather when he was a boy, Lily translated for the others, and he asks where the rest of his team is. She looked confused by this last part. Jack stepped forward. We were expecting your full delegation, Monsieur Beaumont. Beaumont turned to Lily and spoke at length in French. As he spoke, her eyes widened slightly. He says he sent his team to visit the UCSF Medical Center this morning, Lily translated. He wants to make this decision himself from his heart, not just from spreadsheets and projections. She paused as Beaumont continued. He says that after our conversation yesterday he couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about his first dream to help people like his father did. Jack exchanged a glance with Jeanette, who looked equally surprised by this development. Beaumont pulled a chair beside Lily and continued speaking directly to her in French, occasionally glancing at Jack to ensure she was translating. He says he spent most of the night researching Vitalis more deeply, Lily relayed. He read about how you started the company after your father's, She paused, searching for the right word. Passing, Thomas supplied gently. Yes, after your father's passing, Lily continued. And how you've turned down larger offers from pharmaceutical companies that wanted to make your technology too expensive for regular hospitals. Jack was taken aback. That information wasn't in their presentation or public materials. Beaumont must have done significant digging overnight. Beaumont reached into his briefcase and withdrew a single sheet of paper, which he placed on the table. He spoke again, his tone serious but warm. "He says this is his offer," Lily translated, peering at the document. $1.5 billion for 22% equity. Jack felt his breath catch. It was almost exactly what they had initially asked for, the full amount with only a slight increase in equity. He looked at Jeanette, who seemed equally stunned. "There must be a catch," Jeanette whispered. As if hearing her thoughts, Beaumont continued speaking, and Lily listened carefully before translating. "He has 3 conditions," she said. "First, the technology must be made available to children's hospitals at a reduced cost." She paused as Beaumont elaborated. "Second, Vitalis must establish a research foundation focused specifically on rare childhood diseases." Jack nodded. Both conditions aligned perfectly with Vitalis's mission. "And the third?" Lily listened as Beaumont spoke at greater length, his expression earnest. "He wants," Lily began, then stopped, looking confused. She asked Beaumont a question in French, and he nodded, smiling slightly. "He wants me to be the young ambassador for the Children's Hospital program," Lily said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "He says children should see another child representing technology that helps them, not just grown-ups in suits." The room fell silent as everyone processed this unexpected condition. Thomas stepped forward protectively. "What exactly would that involve?" Beaumont addressed this question in his limited English. Nothing too demanding. Occasional appearances. Videos for children explaining the technology. Symbol of hope. He turned back to Lily and continued in French. "He says I could help make other kids less scared of hospitals and doctors," Lily translated. "And that my story of helping today might inspire other children to believe they can make a difference too." Thomas looked conflicted. "I appreciate the sentiment, Monsieur Beaumont, but Lily is just 7. That's a lot of responsibility and attention for a child." Beaumont nodded understandingly and spoke again with Lily translating. "He says it would be very limited, maybe 4 or 5 events a year, and only with your approval, Daddy. He says he has grandchildren too and understands your concerns." Jack watched this exchange with amazement. In less than 24 hours, a failed translation arrangement had somehow evolved into a partnership that not only saved Vitalis, but potentially expanded its mission in ways he hadn't imagined. "May we have a moment to discuss this?" Jack asked. Beaumont nodded graciously and stepped out to take a call. Once alone, Jack turned to his team. "Thoughts? The financial terms are better than we hoped for," Jeanette said immediately. "And the first 2 conditions align with our mission anyway." "It's the third condition that concerns me," Thomas said, placing a hand on Lily's shoulder. "I don't want her thrust into a public role at such a young age." Lily looked up at her father. "But Daddy, I want to help. If I can make other kids less scared of hospitals, isn't that good?" "Of course it is, sweetheart," Thomas replied gently. "But there's a lot to consider. What about school? Your normal childhood activities?" The attorney said the Devereaux inheritance includes significant educational provisions, Amy pointed out quietly. "Perhaps this is all connecting in ways we couldn't have anticipated." Jack considered everyone's input. "Thomas, we would never agree to anything that might harm Lily. If we accept Beaumont's offer, we could structure the ambassador role to be minimal and age-appropriate, and of course you would have final say on any appearance or commitment." Thomas looked down at his daughter's hopeful face. "What do you think, Lily? Is this something you really want to do?" "I think Mommy would want me to help," Lily said simply. "She always said my French was a gift I should use to help people." The simplicity and sincerity of her answer seemed to resolve something in Thomas. He nodded slowly. "We can try it, with clear boundaries." When Beaumont returned, Jack presented their response. "We accept your generous offer and all 3 conditions, with the understanding that Lily's role will be limited and always subject to her father's approval." Beaumont nodded, looking pleased. He turned to Lily and spoke directly to her in French. She listened, then translated for everyone. "He says this is how business should be done, with heart and purpose, not just profits. He thinks health scan AI will change medicine forever, especially for children who don't have access to specialist doctors." Jack extended his hand to Beaumont. "Thank you for believing in our vision." As they shook hands, sealing the agreement that would transform Vitalis from a struggling startup to a major player in medical technology, Jack couldn't help but marvel at how it had all unfolded. If Pierre hadn't fallen ill, if Thomas hadn't needed to fix that leak, if Lily hadn't been with him that day, the butterfly effect was staggering. After Beaumont departed to rejoin his team and formalize the agreement, the Vitalis office erupted in celebration. News of the successful deal spread quickly, with employees who had been fearing layoffs now embracing a future full of possibility. In the midst of the celebration, Thomas pulled Jack aside. "There's something else you should know about the Devereaux situation," he said quietly. "The inheritance includes majority ownership of a children's hospital in Montreal that's been struggling financially. It's one of the oldest pediatric facilities in Canada, but it needs modernization." Jack's mind immediately began connecting dots. A children's hospital that needs modernization, and a breakthrough diagnostic technology that could revolutionize pediatric care. Thomas nodded. The attorney mentioned that the board has been looking for innovative solutions to keep the hospital viable. I couldn't help thinking about the potential synergy. "This is incredible," Jack murmured. "It's almost too perfect to be coincidence. My late wife always said there are no coincidences, only paths we don't yet understand," Thomas replied. She would have seen this as meant to be. As they rejoined the celebration, Jack watched Lily chatting animatedly with Amy about what being a young ambassador might entail. The child's innocent enthusiasm was contagious, her imagination already spinning with ideas about how to help other children understand medical technology. Later that afternoon, as the initial excitement settled into focused planning, Jack's phone rang again. It was Sophie from Beaumont's team. "Mr. Reynolds, I'm calling with some news that might interest you," she began. "After our visit to UCSF Medical Center this morning, Monsieur Beaumont has had another idea. He'd like to propose establishing a joint pediatric research institute between Beaumont Global Health, Vitalis, and potentially the Devereaux Hospital Network." Jack sat up straighter. "That's an interesting proposition. What prompted this?" "Frankly, it was Lily," Sophie admitted. "Monsieur Beaumont was deeply moved by her story and her connection to both your technology and the Devereaux legacy. He sees an opportunity to create something transformative in pediatric medicine by combining these elements." As Jack listened to Sophie outline Beaumont's vision for a cross-border pediatric research and treatment network, he felt a sense of awe at how rapidly their fortunes had changed, and all because a 7-year-old girl had stepped into a role no one could have imagined for her. What had begun as a desperate attempt to salvage a business deal was evolving into something far greater, a potential revolution in children's healthcare that spanned 2 countries and brought together unlikely partners united by a common purpose. And at the center of it all was Lily Wilson, the unexpected translator who had translated not just words, but hearts. The following week found Thomas and Lily Wilson stepping off a plane in Montreal, greeted by the crisp Canadian autumn air. The attorney, Robert Sinclair, met them at the airport, a tall, distinguished man with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Welcome to Montreal," he said warmly, shaking Thomas's hand before bending slightly to greet Lily. "And you must be the remarkable young lady I've heard so much about." Lily smiled shyly. "Bonjour, Monsieur Sinclair. C'est un plaisir de vous rencontrer." Sinclair's eyebrows rose in pleasant surprise at her perfect French. "Your grandmother would have been delighted," he remarked. Claire was very proud of her French-Canadian heritage. As they drove from the airport through Montreal's historic streets, Sinclair provided context for what awaited them. The Devereaux family has been prominent in Quebec healthcare for nearly a century. Claire's husband, Henri Devereaux, founded the Children's Hospital in the 1950s. Their daughter Elise, your grandmother Lily, expanded it into a network of specialized care facilities. "My mum never talked much about her family," Thomas said, watching the city unfold through the car window. "I knew she came from Montreal, but she always changed the subject when I asked about her childhood." Sinclair nodded sympathetically. Sarah and her mother had a complicated relationship. Marie-Claire, Sarah's mother and Elise's daughter, had different ideas about the family legacy. When Sarah chose to pursue art instead of medicine, it created a rift that unfortunately was never healed. "Mommy was an artist?" Lily asked, having never heard this detail before. Thomas smiled gently. "Yes, sweetheart. She was studying painting when I met her. She gave it up when she started working to support our family." This revelation seemed to touch something in Lily, who fell silent, processing this new information about her mother. Their car pulled up to an impressive stone building in Old Montreal. The Devereaux Foundation headquarters, Sinclair explained. We'll meet the Board of Trustees here. Inside, they were led to a wood-paneled conference room where 5 serious-looking individuals awaited them. At the head of the table sat an elderly woman whose regal bearing immediately commanded attention. Thomas and Lily Wilson, may I present Dr. Genevieve Devereaux, Claire's sister-in-law and current chairperson of the Devereaux Foundation, Sinclair introduced. Dr. Devereaux studied Lily intently, her stern expression softening almost imperceptibly. The resemblance to Sarah is remarkable, she noted, her accent distinctly French-Canadian. And to Claire as well around the eyes. The meeting that followed was overwhelming in its scope and implications. The Devereaux inheritance was vast, not just the controlling interest in the children's hospital network, but also substantial financial assets, real estate throughout Quebec, and an art collection valued in the millions. Claire was determined that everything should pass to Sarah's child, Dr. Devereaux explained. She never gave up hope of reconciliation, even after Sarah's passing. As the trustees outlined the details, Thomas looked increasingly overwhelmed. This is a lot to process, he said finally. Lily is only 7. How can she possibly manage this responsibility? Dr. Devereaux nodded understandingly. The foundation will continue day-to-day management until Lily comes of age. You, as her father, will have oversight authority alongside the trustees. What we need today is simply your acknowledgement of acceptance. Thomas glanced at Lily, who sat quietly absorbing everything with remarkable composure. What do you think, sweetheart? This is your inheritance. Lily considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. Can we see the hospital first? I want to understand what great-grandmother Claire wanted me to take care of. Dr. Devereaux's expression warmed further at this response. A wise request. Perhaps you are a Devereaux, after all. Later that afternoon, they toured the Montreal Children's Specialty Hospital, an aging but dignified facility nestled in the heart of the city. As they walked through the corridors, Lily observed everything with keen interest. The dedicated staff, the outdated equipment, and most of all the children receiving care. In the oncology ward, a young boy undergoing chemotherapy perked up when Lily entered his room. They began conversing in French, and soon the boy was laughing at something Lily had said. She has the Devereaux touch, remarked Dr. Lena Moreau, the hospital's medical director who was guiding their tour. Claire had that same ability to connect with patients instantly. As they continued through the facility, Dr. Moreau outlined the hospital's challenges. We provide specialized care you can't find elsewhere in Quebec, but our technology is falling behind. We've been losing patients to larger institutions in Toronto and Boston. Thomas nodded thoughtfully. What would it take to modernize? About 50 million for immediate needs, new diagnostic equipment, updated operating theaters, another 100 million for a proper revitalization, Dr. Moreau replied. The foundation has the funds, but the board has been deadlocked on the investment strategy. As they reached the hospital's central courtyard, a peaceful garden space where patients could enjoy fresh air, Lily tugged at her father's sleeve. Daddy, I had an idea, she said, her expression earnest. What if we put Mr. Reynolds' special computer here? The one that finds sicknesses faster than doctors sometimes can? Thomas knelt to her level. Health Scan AI. That's actually a very interesting thought, Lily. Dr. Moreau looked curious. What technology is this? Thomas briefly explained Health Scan AI and Vitalis' recent partnership with Beaumont Global Health. As he spoke, Dr. Moreau's expression grew increasingly interested. This could be exactly what we need, she said when he finished. Pediatric diagnostic technology is our greatest weakness right now. Many children arrive here after their conditions have advanced because of delayed diagnosis. That evening in their hotel suite, while Lily slept, Thomas made a call to Jack. How's Montreal? Jack asked. Overwhelming, Thomas admitted. The inheritance is unsubstantial, but that's not why I'm calling. He outlined what they'd learned about the hospital's needs and Lily's suggestion. Jack was immediately intrigued. It's serendipitous timing. Beaumont was just talking about establishing a pediatric diagnostic center of excellence. If the Devereaux Hospital became the first implementation site for HealthScan AI outside the US, it could be the beginning of that cross-border network Sophie mentioned, Thomas finished, and it would fulfill both Lily's inheritance responsibilities and her role as young ambassador. I'll call Beaumont first thing tomorrow, Jack promised. This could be the perfect partnership opportunity. The following day brought another revelation. As they toured the Devereaux family home, an elegant 19th-century mansion now used primarily for foundation events, they came upon a locked room on the third floor. This was Claire's private gallery, Sinclair explained, unlocking the door. She was quite particular about who could enter. Inside, they discovered dozens of paintings, all by the same artist, Sarah Wilson. Landscapes, portraits, abstract compositions, a comprehensive collection representing a significant artistic career that neither Thomas nor Lily had known existed. She collected everything Sarah ever created, Sinclair explained, even student works. She had art dealers track down pieces Sarah had sold before their estrangement. Thomas moved through the room in stunned silence, taking in this secret visual history of his late wife. "I had no idea she was this talented," he murmured. "She never showed me these." Lily stood transfixed before a particular painting, a vibrant rendering of a young woman standing at a crossroads, her face turned toward a horizon filled with light. The nameplate simply read, "Self-Portrait at 20, Choices." Claire believed Sarah's greatest regret was abandoning her art, Sinclair said gently. She hoped that someday Lily might understand this part of her mother's life. Thomas placed a protective hand on Lily's shoulder. "Your mother was remarkable, Lily. She gave up so much for us." Lily nodded solemnly. "Can we bring some of these home? I want to see Mommy's paintings every day." "Of course," Sinclair assured her. "They belong to you now." On their final day in Montreal, the Devereaux Foundation Board convened for a special session. Thomas and Lily sat at the table alongside Dr. Devereaux and the trustees, while Jack Reynolds and Claude Beaumont joined via video conference. "What we are proposing," Jack explained, "is a comprehensive partnership. Vitalis would provide the HealthScan AI technology to the Montreal Children's Specialty Hospital at no cost, with Beaumont Global Health funding the necessary infrastructure upgrades." Beaumont nodded on screen. "In return, the hospital would become our pediatric research center for continued development of diagnostic applications, specifically for children." Dr. Devereaux looked impressed. "And the Foundation's financial commitment?" "The $50 million Dr. Moreau identified for immediate modernization needs," Thomas suggested, "with the understanding that the technology partnership reduces the overall investment required for revitalization." The discussion continued for hours, addressing regulatory considerations, cross-border healthcare implications, and governance structure. Throughout it all, Lily listened attentively, occasionally asking surprisingly insightful questions that cut to the heart of complex issues. "If the computer helps find sicknesses faster," she asked during one exchange, "will children have to stay in the hospital for shorter times? Because being away from home is the scariest part." Her questions silenced the room, reminding everyone of the human impact behind their technical and financial discussions. "That's exactly right, Lily," Dr. Moreau confirmed. "Earlier diagnosis means less invasive treatments and shorter hospital stays in many cases." By day's end, the framework of an agreement had taken shape, an unprecedented collaboration between a struggling family foundation, a cutting-edge technology startup, and a global healthcare investment firm, all catalyzed by the unexpected circumstances surrounding a 7-year-old girl. As the meeting concluded, Dr. Devereaux approached Thomas and Lily privately. "Claire would be proud," she said, her formal demeanor giving way to genuine emotion. "Not just of the hospital partnership, but of how you've handled all of this, Lily. You have your mother's artistic spirit and your great-grandmother's practical wisdom. A rare combination." That night, as they packed for their return to San Francisco, Lily sat on the hotel bed surrounded by photographs of her mother's paintings. "Daddy, do you think I could learn to paint like Mommy?" Thomas sat beside her. "I think you can learn anything you set your mind to, sweetheart. Your mother would be thrilled to see you try." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "I want to help sick children with Mr. Reynolds' computer, but I also want to make beautiful things like Mommy did." "You don't have to choose," Thomas assured her. "That's the gift your inheritance gives you, the freedom to explore all parts of who you are." As Lily drifted off to sleep, Thomas stood at the window overlooking Montreal's twinkling lights. In just over a week, their lives had transformed beyond recognition, from a struggling maintenance worker and his daughter to the inheritors of a healthcare legacy, from financial insecurity to unimaginable wealth, from anonymity to what would likely become public attention as the HealthScan AI partnership took shape. Through it all, Lily had remained essentially herself, compassionate, curious, and wise beyond her years. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Thomas was certain of one thing. His daughter possessed the extraordinary ability to bridge worlds, between languages, between generations, between science and art, between business and humanity. Their return to San Francisco would mark not an ending but a beginning of a journey that would reshape pediatric healthcare across 2 countries, revitalize a family legacy, and allow a child's innocent wisdom to guide some of the most sophisticated medical technology in the world. Back at Vitalis headquarters, Jack Reynolds was feeling a similar sense of wonder at how events had unfolded. What had begun as a desperate last-minute solution to a translation problem had cascaded into a transformative partnership with implications far beyond what anyone could have predicted. As he prepared for the public announcement of both the Beaumont investment and the Montreal Hospital initiative, Jack found himself thinking not about market valuations or technology specifications, but about Lily's simple question to Beaumont that had changed everything. What did you want to be when you were my age? Sometimes, he reflected, the most profound business wisdom came not from MBA programs or corporate strategists, but from the uncomplicated truth of a child's perspective, the ability to see past complexities to the heart of what truly matters. The months following the Montreal Agreement brought whirlwind changes to the lives of everyone involved. Vitalis's headquarters buzzed with activity as the HealthScan AI pediatric adaptation began in earnest. Engineers, medical specialists, and data scientists worked around the clock to refine the technology specifically for children's unique physiological needs. For Thomas and Lily, life had transformed in ways they were still adjusting to. They had moved from their modest apartment to a comfortable home in a quiet San Francisco neighborhood. Significant, but not ostentatious, as Thomas had insisted. He continued working at Horizon Tower, refusing to let the Devereaux inheritance change his work ethic, though he had reduced his hours to accommodate the increasing foundation responsibilities. Lily had returned to school, but with new arrangements that allowed for her periodic travel to Montreal and her limited role as young ambassador. Her school principal, initially skeptical, had become supportive after recognizing the educational value of her unique situation. On a crisp October morning, Jack stood in Vitalis's newly expanded offices, reviewing architectural plans for the Montreal Hospital renovation with Amy and the project team. The diagnostic wing installation starts next month, Amy noted, pointing to the timeline. The Beaumont team wants to accelerate, but the hospital administration is concerned about disrupting patient care. Jack nodded. Patient needs come first. We adapt to their schedule, not the other way around. The office door opened, and Jeanette entered with a concerned expression. Jack, you need to see this. She handed him a tablet displaying a business news website. The headline made his stomach drop. Child prodigy or corporate prop? Questions surround Vitalis's Young Ambassador program. The article featured a photo of Lily from her first official appearance as Young Ambassador, a carefully managed interview with a children's health magazine, where she had explained in simple terms how HealthScan AI worked. The piece questioned the ethics of involving a child in corporate marketing, speculated about the Devereaux inheritance, and hinted at exploitation. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Jack muttered, scrolling through the article. Have Thomas and Lily seen this? Not yet, Jeanette replied, but it's gaining traction online. Jack rubbed his temples. Get our PR team in here now. Hand call Thomas. He should hear about this from us first. Within hours, similar stories appeared across multiple outlets, each adding new speculation. Some questioned Lily's qualifications as an ambassador despite her age, while others dug into the Devereaux family history, unearthing old controversies and conflicts. The heartwarming story of a child translator saving a business deal had morphed into something more sensational. When Thomas arrived at Vitalis that afternoon, his expression was a mixture of anger and concern. I knew this would happen, he said, pacing Jack's office. I should never have agreed to the public role. We were careful, Jack reminded him. One controlled interview, no social media, limited public exposure. The press just latched onto it. They're suggesting I'm exploiting my own daughter, Thomas said, his voice strained, that I orchestrated this whole thing for financial gain. Karen Martinez, Vitalis's newly hired public relations director, joined them with a detailed analysis. The story has all the elements the media loves. A child prodigy, a massive inheritance, cutting-edge technology. We need to decide how to respond. We don't, Thomas said firmly. Lily's done. No more ambassador role, no more public appearances. I want her completely out of the spotlight. Jack understood Thomas's protective instinct, but also recognized the complexity of their situation. Thomas, I respect your position as Lily's father. Whatever you decide, we'll support. But consider this from all angles before making a final decision. What angles? Thomas demanded. My daughter's privacy and well-being are non-negotiable. Of course they are, Jack agreed. But remember why Lily wanted to do this in the first place, to help other children feel less scared about medical technology. The ambassador role was never about marketing for Vitalis. It was about making healthcare less intimidating for kids. Thomas sank into a chair, conflict evident in his expression. I just want to protect her. I know, Jack said gently. But sometimes protection means guiding rather than sheltering. Lily has an extraordinary ability to connect with people. That's not something we created. It's who she is. Karen interjected tactfully. If I may, there's a middle path here. We can pause public activities while developing a more structured approach that prioritizes Lily's well-being and education. Limited, meaningful engagements rather than traditional publicity. Their discussion was interrupted when Amy appeared at the door. Sorry to interrupt, but Lily's school just called. She got upset after some classmates showed her the news stories on their phones. Thomas, they're asking if you can pick her up. Thomas was on his feet immediately. I'll be right there. We'll continue this conversation later, Jack assured him. Family first. After Thomas left, Jack turned to Karen. How bad is this likely to get? It depends on how we handle it, she replied honestly. The story has momentum, but if we're transparent and child-focused in our response, we can change the narrative. Jack nodded thoughtfully. Draft a statement, emphasizing that Lily's role was always about helping children relate to medical technology, not corporate promotion. Stress that all activities were developed with educational consultants and approved by her father. And make it clear that her well-being comes before everything else. What about the Montreal project? Amy asked. The media attention could affect the hospital staff's perception. Call Dr. Moreau, Jack instructed. She should hear our perspective directly. That evening, Thomas sat with Lily in the window seat of their new home, watching the sunset over the Golden Gate Bridge. Her earlier tears had dried, but a certain innocence had been shaken. Why did those kids say mean things, Daddy? They said I was just pretending to help people, but really doing advertisements. Thomas chose his words carefully. Sometimes people don't understand situations that are different or unusual. What we're doing with the hospital and Mr. Reynolds' company isn't something most 7-year-olds do. But I'm not pretending, Lily insisted. I really want to help kids not be scared of hospitals. Like I was scared when Mummy was sick. Thomas hugged her close. I know, sweetheart, and that's what matters, your real feelings and intentions. Do I have to stop being the young ambassador? Lily asked in a small voice. We're figuring that out, Thomas answered honestly. What do you think? Lily considered the question seriously. I don't like when people say mean things, but I still want to help with the special computer, and I want to learn about great-grandmother's hospital. She paused. Maybe I could just help without being in magazines. Thomas smiled at her wisdom. That sounds like a good compromise. Meanwhile in Montreal, Dr. Moreau was addressing the hospital board about the recent media attention. The publicity is unfortunate, she acknowledged, but let's not lose sight of what this partnership has already accomplished. The first HealthScan AI pediatric prototype arrives next month. The renovation funding is secured. We're on track to become a leading diagnostic center. Dr. Devereaux, still serving as foundation chairperson, nodded in agreement. Claire would not have wanted us to be deterred by publicity concerns. The child's well-being must be protected, certainly, but the project must continue. The following week brought unexpected developments. A prominent pediatric neurologist published an op-ed defending Lily's ambassador role, arguing that children relating to healthcare technology, through a peer representative, was psychologically sound and potentially revolutionary for pediatric medicine. Several children's advocacy organizations issued statements supporting the concept, while emphasizing the need for proper safeguards. Most significantly, families of children who had benefited from early testing of HealthScan AI began sharing their stories online, creating a counter-narrative to the exploitation angle. One viral video featured a 5-year-old boy explaining how Lily's special computer had found his brain tumor early enough for successful treatment. In San Francisco, Jack and Thomas met to reassess their approach. "The narrative is shifting," Jack observed. "People are beginning to understand what we're really trying to accomplish." Thomas nodded. "Lily's been thinking about this too. She has some ideas about how she wants to be involved going forward." "I'd love to hear them," Jack replied. "She's proven to have pretty good instincts so far." Thomas smiled. "She wants to help design child-friendly explanations of how the technology works. Drawings, simple videos, that sort of thing. Behind the scenes, not public-facing. And she wants to learn more about hospital design, how to make medical spaces less scary for kids." "That's actually brilliant," Jack admitted. "It maintains her involvement in meaningful ways without the public pressure." "She also wants to start painting lessons," Thomas added. "She's become very interested in her mother's art since we visited the gallery in Montreal." Jack's expression softened. "She's finding her own path through all this." "She is," Thomas agreed. "And I need to let her, with appropriate boundaries." Their revised approach took shape over the following weeks. Lily stepped back from public appearances, but became involved in the design aspects of the Montreal hospital renovation. Her simple suggestions, examination rooms with painted ceilings to give children something pleasant to look at while lying down, diagnostic equipment decorated with friendly animal themes, resonated with the medical staff as practical improvements that adult designers had overlooked. The Devereux Foundation established an educational trust to ensure Lily's involvement remained primarily learning-focused. She began receiving specialized tutoring in medical terminology, basic anatomy, and design principles alongside her regular schoolwork. Her French fluency proved invaluable as she communicated directly with the Montreal hospital staff about their pediatric patients' experiences. By December, the first phase of the Montreal hospital renovation was complete, with the HealthScan AI diagnostic wing ready for its official launch. Despite the media challenges, the project had remained on schedule, a testament to the commitment of everyone involved. The evening before the launch, Thomas and Lily arrived in Montreal for a private tour of the completed facilities. Dr. Moreau met them at the entrance, where a simple plaque now read the Sarah Wilson Pediatric Diagnostic Center, a tribute Thomas had requested to honor his late wife's connection to both the Devereux legacy and Lily's future. "It's beautiful," Lily whispered, as they entered the transformed space. Gone were the institutional green walls and intimidating equipment. Instead, the diagnostic center featured warm colors, interactive educational displays, and medical technology thoughtfully integrated into child-friendly environments. The HealthScan AI interface had been completely redesigned based on Lily's input, simplified displays that children could understand, a friendly avatar guide, and a bravery certificate that printed automatically after each scan. Dr. Moreau smiled at Lily's reaction. "Your ideas made all the difference. The staff is already reporting that children are significantly less anxious about their diagnostic procedures." As they continued the tour, they encountered Claude Beaumont, who had arrived early for the next day's ceremony. "Ah, Mademoiselle Lily," he greeted warmly in French. "What do you think of what we have created together?" Lily considered the question with her characteristic thoughtfulness. "It feels like a place where children can be brave," she answered finally. "Not because it's not scary anymore, but because it helps them understand what's happening." Beaumont nodded appreciatively. "That is precisely what good medical care should do. Not eliminate fear, but provide understanding that allows courage to grow." He turned to Thomas. "You have raised a remarkable child, Monsieur Wilson." Thomas smiled. "She came that way. I'm just trying to keep up." Later that evening, in their hotel suite, Lily sat at a small easel that Thomas had brought from San Francisco. Her painting lessons had quickly revealed a natural talent, perhaps inherited from her mother. She worked intently on a colorful rendering of the diagnostic center as she envisioned children experiencing it. "Do you think children will be less afraid now, Daddy?" she asked without looking up from her work. "I think you've helped make it so," Thomas replied honestly. Lily added bright yellow streaks to her painting, sunlight streaming through windows that didn't actually exist in the real center, but represented her vision for it. "I've been thinking," she said, her brush never pausing, "about what I want to be when I grow up." Thomas smiled. "And what's that, sweetheart?" "I want to be someone who builds bridges," she said, surprising him with the metaphor. "Not real bridges with concrete, but bridges between things that don't usually go together, like art and medicine, or grown-up business and children's feelings." Thomas felt a lump form in his throat at the wisdom in her words. I think you're already becoming that person, Lily. As his daughter continued painting, lost in the creative process just as her mother had once been, Thomas reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. From a chance encounter in a corporate office to the cusp of transforming pediatric healthcare, from a struggling single father to the steward of a family legacy, from grief over Sarah's loss to the discovery of her hidden artistic gifts living on in their daughter. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: the official launch, continued media attention, the ongoing balance between public interests and private lives. But for tonight, watching Lily create her vision of a better world for children, Thomas allowed himself to feel something he hadn't experienced in years, a sense of complete rightness, as though disparate pieces of a puzzle were finally forming a coherent whole. What none of them could have anticipated was how the following day's ceremony would capture worldwide attention, catapulting their private mission into the global spotlight and creating both unprecedented opportunities and challenges for everyone involved, especially for Lily, whose simple wisdom would soon resonate far beyond the walls of one renovated hospital. The morning of the Sarah Wilson Pediatric Diagnostic Center's official opening dawned bright and clear, with Montreal's skyline crisp against a blue December sky. Despite efforts to keep the ceremony intimate, media interest had intensified following leaked images of the innovative child-centered design. News crews from across North America assembled outside the hospital, while healthcare dignitaries, technology executives, and government officials filled the center's main atrium. Thomas adjusted Lily's blue dress collar as they waited in a quiet side room. "Remember, you don't have to speak if you don't want to. Just cutting the ribbon is enough." Lily nodded, her expression serene despite the magnitude of the occasion. At 8 years old now, her birthday had passed during the final phase of construction. She carried herself with a composure that continued to surprise those who knew her. "I wrote something," she said, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. "Just in case I decide to say it." Thomas smiled. "That's good planning. May I see it?" She handed him the paper. As he read her carefully printed words, Thomas felt the familiar tightening in his chest. Pride mingled with amazement at his daughter's natural eloquence. "This is beautiful, Lily," he said softly. "Your mom would be so proud." A gentle knock at the door announced Jack's arrival. Over the months of collaboration, he had become not just a business partner, but a friend to both Thomas and Lily. "Everyone's ready whenever you are," Jack said. "Quite a turnout out there." Thomas looked to Lily. "What do you think, sweetheart? Ready?" She took a deep breath and nodded. "I think so." As they entered the atrium, the assembled crowd fell silent. At the center stood Dr. Devereaux, Dr. Moreau, Claude Beaumont, and several hospital board members. A large red ribbon stretched across the entrance to the diagnostic wing, symbolizing the official opening. Dr. Moreau stepped forward to welcome everyone and provide context for the occasion. She spoke eloquently about the partnership between Vitalis, Beaumont Global Health, and the Devereaux Foundation, emphasizing how the collaboration represented a new model for pediatric healthcare innovation. But technical achievements, however impressive, are not what make this center truly special, she concluded. What distinguishes this facility is that it was designed with the insights of those we serve, children themselves, and that approach began with one extraordinary child who reminded all of us that medicine must speak to the heart as well as the body. She gestured toward Lily, who stepped forward with Thomas by her side. Cameras flashed as she was handed a large ceremonial pair of scissors. "Lily Wilson will now officially open the center named in honor of her mother, Sarah Wilson," Dr. Moreau announced. As Lily positioned the scissors on the ribbon, she paused and looked up at her father. Thomas recognized the question in her eyes and nodded encouragingly. After cutting the ribbon to applause, Lily stepped to the microphone that had been lowered to her height. The room fell silent as she unfolded her paper. "Thank you for coming today," she began, her clear voice carrying throughout the atrium. "This special place means a lot to me because of my mom. She never got to see this hospital, but I think she would have loved how it makes medicine less scary for kids." She glanced at her notes before continuing. "When I was little and my mum was sick, hospitals seemed like scary places where bad news happened. I didn't understand what the doctors were saying or why there were so many machines. Everything felt cold and confusing." The audience listened in rapt attention as this child articulated what many had experienced, but few had expressed so directly. "Mr. Reynolds made a special computer that helps doctors find sicknesses faster," Lily continued, "and Mr. Beaumont helped bring it here. But the most important thing isn't the computer or the money. So it's remembering that being sick is scary, especially for kids, and that sometimes explaining things in a way we understand helps us be brave." She looked around the room, making eye contact with various officials and dignitaries. "Grown-ups sometimes make things more complicated than they need to be. My daddy says that's because they forget what it's like to be small in a big world. But if we listen to each other, grown-ups listening to kids and kids trying to understand grown-ups, we can build better hospitals, better computers, and better ways to help people who are sick." Lily's voice grew stronger as she continued. "My great-grandmother Claire built this hospital because she wanted children to have a special place for their care. My mum taught me French because she thought languages could connect people. Now we're connecting all these things, languages, hospitals, computers, and art, to help children feel safer when they're sick." She folded her paper, having memorized her conclusion. "The most important medicine isn't in bottles or machines. It's in how we care for each other and make each other feel less alone when we're scared. That's what I hope this place will do for every child who comes here. Thank you." For a moment, the atrium was completely silent. Then, spontaneous applause erupted, building to a standing ovation. Reporters wiped away tears. Hardened healthcare executives looked visibly moved, and Dr. Devereaux, known for her stoic demeanor, embraced Lily with uncharacteristic emotion. Thomas stood back, watching his daughter receive the acknowledgement her wisdom deserved. Jack appeared beside him, equally affected by the moment. "That wasn't just a speech," Jack said quietly. "That was a mission statement for everything we've been trying to accomplish." The ceremony continued with tours of the new facilities, but Lily's words had fundamentally altered the tenor of the event. What might have been a standard ribbon cutting had transformed into something more meaningful, a reminder of healthcare's human purpose. By that evening, video of Lily's speech had spread across social media platforms. Major news networks featured segments on the innovative pediatric center and the remarkable story behind it. Healthcare publications requested interviews about the human-centered design approach. Most significantly, children's hospitals from around the world began inquiring about the HealthScan AI technology and the child-friendly implementation model. 3 days later, back in San Francisco, Jack convened an emergency meeting of Vitalis's executive team. The company's servers had been overwhelmed with inquiries from healthcare institutions across 6 continents. "We've received partnership requests from 47 children's hospitals in 22 countries, Jeanette reported. "Everyone wants what Montreal has." Jack nodded, both overwhelmed and energized by the response. "This is beyond anything we anticipated. We need to scale thoughtfully." "Beaumont called this morning," Amy added. "He's proposing an accelerated global rollout plan. His team is already translating the child-friendly interfaces into 12 languages." As they discussed logistics and priorities, Jack found himself thinking about the unexpected journey that had brought them to this point. What had begun as a desperate search for a French translator had evolved into a global pediatric healthcare revolution. And at the center of it all was Lily, not because of her inheritance or her language skills, but because of her ability to see what adults had overlooked, the fundamental human needs beneath the technology and business considerations. In Montreal, the impact was even more immediate. Within weeks of opening, the Sarah Wilson Pediatric Diagnostic Center reported a 40% reduction in children's anxiety levels during diagnostic procedures. Diagnosis times improved dramatically, and treatment outcomes showed promising early results. Medical schools began sending observers to study the human-centered approach. For Thomas and Lily, life settled into a new rhythm. They divided their time between San Francisco and Montreal, balancing Lily's education with her growing involvement in both the Devereaux Foundation and the global implementation of child-centered diagnostic centers. Lily's artistic talents flourished under the guidance of instructors from the San Francisco Art Institute. Her paintings, often depicting medical environments from a child's perspective, became an integral part of the design philosophy for new pediatric facilities. Several were prominently displayed in the Montreal Center, providing visual comfort to young patients. On a spring afternoon, 6 months after the opening ceremony, Thomas found Lily in Sarah's gallery in the Montreal mansion, sitting quietly before her mother's self-portrait, the young woman at the crossroads. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" he asked, joining her on the bench. "I was wondering which road Mommy would have taken If she could have seen all the paths, Lily replied thoughtfully. If she knew about the hospital and the special computer and everything. Thomas considered the question carefully. I think she would have found a way to walk multiple paths just like you're doing. She never saw art and medicine and family as separate roads, just different aspects of the same journey. Lily nodded, seeming satisfied with this answer. I'm going to paint the next center before we build it, she declared. So everyone can see what it should feel like, not just what it should look like. That's a wonderful idea, Thomas agreed, continually amazed by his daughter's intuitive understanding of how to bridge technical and emotional realities. Later that week, Jack arrived in Montreal for the quarterly partnership review. The meeting, held in the Devereux Foundation boardroom, included Thomas, Dr. Devereux Claude Beaumont, and several medical directors from hospitals implementing the health scan technology. The results exceed our projections across all metrics, Jack reported. Diagnosis accuracy rates are at 98.7% for the pediatric adapted algorithm. Average time to diagnosis has decreased by 63%. Most importantly, patient experience scores have improved dramatically. Beaumont nodded in satisfaction. The financial model is also proving sustainable. The reduced cost structure for children's hospitals has not impacted overall profitability thanks to efficiency gains. Dr. Devereux, who had initially been the most skeptical about the partnership, offered her assessment. We have requests from every province in Canada to implement similar centers. The Ministry of Health is proposing a nationwide initiative based on our model. As the discussion continued, Jack noticed Thomas checking his watch. We're keeping you from something? He asked during a break. Thomas smiled. Lily's giving a tour to some special visitors, children from the oncology ward. It's become a monthly tradition. The medical staff found that having a child explain the technology to other children significantly reduces anxiety before procedures. Mind if I observe? Jack asked. It might help us refine the ambassador program for other facilities. They slipped away to the diagnostic center, where they found Lily leading a small group of patients and their parents through the facility. Some children were in wheelchairs, others carried IV poles, but all were engaged, as Lily explained the equipment in child-friendly terms. This is the special camera that can see inside your body, she was saying, gesturing to the health scan imaging device, now decorated with cheerful, space-themed elements. It's like having supervision that can spot tiny problems before they become big problems. A small boy with no hair raised his hand. Does it hurt? Not even a little bit, Lily assured him. It's just like having your picture taken. And look, when you're done you get this special certificate that says you were brave enough to help the doctors see inside. Jack watched in amazement as Lily addressed each child's fears with perfect empathy. She wasn't reciting memorized information. She was translating complex medical concepts into experiences children could understand and accept. After the tour, as the children returned to their ward, a mother approached Lily with tears in her eyes. My daughter has been terrified of her upcoming scan. She wouldn't even discuss it with the doctors, but now she's actually excited about it. How did you do that? Lily shrugged. I just explained it the way I would want someone to explain it to me. That evening, a celebratory dinner was held at the Devereux mansion, marking 6 months of successful operation. As executives and medical directors discussed future plans, Lily slipped away to the gallery, where she had set up her easel near her mother's self-portrait. Jack found her there working on a painting of her own, a vibrant scene depicting children gathered around a glowing medical device, their faces showing curiosity rather than fear. That's beautiful, he commented, careful not to disturb her concentration. Lily added a touch of yellow to the canvas before responding. I'm trying to show what the centers feel like now, not what they used to feel like. Jack nodded, understanding the distinction. Your mom would be proud of how you've carried on both her artistic talent and her family's medical legacy. I'm not doing it because of legacies, Lily said matter-of-factly. I'm doing it because it helps people. The simplicity of her motivation struck Jack profoundly. In a world of complex business arrangements, technological innovations, and institutional partnerships, this child remained focused on the fundamental purpose, helping people feel better. You know, Jack said thoughtfully, that first day when you translated for us, you didn't just translate French to English. You translated adult concerns into human ones. You've been doing that ever since. Lily considered this, brush poised over her canvas. Sometimes people forget to listen to what's important because they're too busy with all the other words. As she returned to her painting, Jack realized he was witnessing something rare and precious, the natural wisdom that comes from seeing the world without layers of adult complication. Lily's gift wasn't just her language skills or artistic talent, but her ability to distill complex situations to their essence. 1 year to the day after Pierre the translator had fallen ill, necessitating Lily's unexpected involvement, a global summit was held in Montreal. Representatives from children's hospitals across the world gathered to learn about the HealthScan AI implementation and the child-centered design approach pioneered at the Sarah Wilson Center. The keynote presentation featured not corporate executives or medical directors, but a panel of children, patients who had experienced the technology firsthand. Lily, now approaching her 9th birthday, moderated the discussion with poise and empathy, guiding her peers through sharing their experiences. In the audience, Thomas, Jack, and Claude Beaumont sat together, witnessing the culmination of their unlikely partnership. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you were desperately searching for a translator?" Beaumont asked Jack in a quiet aside. Jack shook his head. "Never. But I'm learning that sometimes the most meaningful innovations come from the most unexpected sources." On stage, Lily was concluding the session with characteristic wisdom. "The most important thing about making hospitals better isn't just the technology," she told the audience. "It's remembering that being sick is a human experience, not just a medical one. When we remember that, everything else becomes clearer." As applause filled the auditorium, Thomas felt a profound sense of completion. The desperate situation that had brought Lily into Jack's conference room had evolved into something that was helping children around the world. His daughter's simple translation services had translated into a global movement for more humane pediatric care. That evening, at a quiet celebration in the Devereux Garden, Lily unveiled her newest painting, a large canvas depicting children of various cultures surrounding a glowing central image representing the HealthScan technology. Each child in the painting held hands with those beside them, creating an unbroken circle of connection. "I call it full circle," she explained to the gathered friends and colleagues, "because that's what happened. We started with trying to help one company, then one hospital, and now it's helping children everywhere. And those children will grow up and help others, and the circle keeps going." Dr. Devereux, who had become something of a grandmother figure to Lily, studied the painting with appreciation. "Claire would say you've honored the Devereux legacy beyond anything she could have imagined." Lily considered this. "I don't think it's just the Devereux legacy anymore, or just the Wilson legacy. It's something new that we all made together." As the evening concluded, Thomas found Jack standing at the garden's edge, gazing at the illuminated hospital visible in the distance. "Thank you," Thomas said simply, "for seeing Lily's potential that day, for taking a chance on her." Jack shook his head. "I should be thanking you and her, that desperate moment when we needed a translator. It turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to Vitalis, to all of us really." They stood in companionable silence, watching as Lily moved among the guests, conversing comfortably in both English and French, bridging worlds as she had done since that first meeting. "You know what amazes me most," Thomas said finally. "She's still essentially the same Lily. All this, the inheritance, the ambassador role, the global attention, none of it has changed her core. She still sees the world with the same clarity and compassion." "That's her real gift," Jack agreed. "Not the French or the artistic talent, but her ability to remind adults of what truly matters." As if sensing their conversation, Lily approached, carrying a small wrapped package. "This is for you, Mr. Reynolds," she said, handing it to Jack, "to remember how everything started." Jack carefully unwrapped it to find a small painting, a rendering of that first meeting in the Vitalis conference room with a frightened Jack, a determined Lily, and concerned executives gathered around a table. Despite the tension depicted, Lily had painted a soft golden light surrounding the scene. "You've captured it perfectly," Jack said, deeply moved by the gift. "The moment that changed everything." Lily smiled. "Mommy used to say that sometimes the universe puts the right people in the right place at exactly the right time. I think that's what happened with us." As she rejoined the other guests, Thomas and Jack exchanged a knowing look. From a desperate business crisis had emerged a partnership that transcended corporate interests, medical innovation, or financial success. It had become a mission to transform how children experienced healthcare, all because a 7-year-old girl had happened to be in a corporate office with her maintenance worker father on the day a French translator fell ill. The circle was indeed complete. Yet it continued to expand, touching lives across continents and generations. And at its center remained Lily Wilson, the unexpected translator, who had ultimately translated adult complexity into childlike wisdom, reminding everyone involved that behind every technological innovation, business deal, and medical breakthrough lies the simple human desire to care for one another, especially in moments of vulnerability and fear. In hospitals around the world, children now approach diagnostic procedures with curiosity rather than terror. Parents found hope rather than dread in medical settings, and healthcare professionals reconnected with the fundamental purpose of their calling, all because one child had reminded them of what truly matters. For Lily herself, this was just the beginning of a lifetime of building bridges between art and science, business and compassion, technology and humanity. The little girl who had entered Vitalis's offices carrying cleaning supplies had emerged as a visionary whose greatest gift was seeing what adults had forgotten, that sometimes the most profound solutions come from the simplest truths.